What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Scaling Ventures podcast. We are building a portfolio of niche vertical SaaS firms that punch like $50 million ARR giants. Tuning our messaging a little bit. Let us know what you think. You got Kjael here, riding solo today. And the topic du jour, a little bit of a cheeky headline, but we've got mastery is the act of subtraction, not addition. And I guess in terms of the actual substance, we're going to be going through a playbook for a power law audit. So table of contents, we will go through the actual power law audit framework. We'll translate that into an execution plan, and we'll wrap up with a checklist. For those that are a little bit pinched for time, I would head to our Substack and jump right to the checklist. It is a table in a shared public Notion board that is punchy and concise and very useful. So cool. Let's start with some context. So, and gosh, this just foots to kind of my evolution as an operator, but I think in business, the default tends to be when you're solving problems or seizing opportunities is to hit the more button, throw people at it, throw resources at it. And this is all well-intentioned. Unfortunately, it has really kind of unexpected and negative consequences in the long run. And so there are a few principles and laws that are kind of universal across any kind of context that are very cheeky to kind of pull in and discuss out of the gate. So it's kind of, I guess, to back up a little bit, like why power law audit? Why this discussion around simplicity as the act of mastery is simplicity, or simplicity is mastery, put a different way. Like, why is this relevant? How do we get there? And so there are a few principles and laws that are well documented that help us understand why this becomes useful. So the first is Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Another, and there are like 10, but I just cherry picked three. The second is Shirky principle, which states that institutions will preserve the problem to which they are the solution. And lastly is Price's law. And this has been on Scaling Ventures values or principles for many years, but states that 50% of the productive work is done by the square root of the total number of people involved. That's a little bit confusing. So here's an example. If you have a team of 100 people, you square that, you get 10. 10 of those 100 people are producing 50% of the output. So there you have it. And so I guess over time, and if you think about in a state of nature, if you want the tree to grow, you prune it. You don't dump fertilizer on it and hit it with all this miracle grow. You trim it back and then it grows. And the same in kind of natural selection and some of the oldest algorithms we know, AKA, evolution. So the thing is, and especially in our context, right? I think generally we want to throw resources at stuff, but in our context as well, the tendency is like, oh, well, let's do this, let's do that. I want to change this, I want to do that. And so the macro or kind of meta challenge is to switch from an fix and add mindset to a simplify and subtract. Or as my favorite philosopher, Bruce Lee, puts it, mastery is not the daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away the unessential. So that's all well and good. And hopefully that helps us all kind of shift our posture generally towards business, towards transformation, towards a lot of things, towards relationships, towards all kinds of stuff. But in terms of operationalizing this simplify and subtract mindset, we use this kind of power law. So let's jump in. So the first thing is, for those that aren't familiar with power law, study it. It's also called the Pareto principle. And it basically states that 20% of anything yields 80% of the intended results, outcomes. And this exists in nature. Like 20% of the storms create 80% of damage, etc. So our hope here in the most meta sense is to identify the 20% of activities, customers, processes, features that generate 80% of the value, and then go about eliminating the remaining 80% that's really not moving. So there are 3 steps in the framework. The first is to define and measure value. The second is data collection and analysis. And the third is a simplification opportunity kind of identification. So I'll bounce through this generally pretty quick. In step 1, define and measure value. So you're looking at revenue by customer, by product or service. You're looking at gross margin per product, service, offering, however you want to think about it. You're going to pinpoint the operational efficiency metrics. So cost to serve, response times are some good examples in support. Daily usage, monthly usage is good for features, etc. And then once you have kind of your arms around like quantitative measurement points rather, you want to overlay that with a qualitative point of view. So strategic alignment with the business's mission, long-term sustainability, make sure to kind of give it a sanity check in terms of what you're looking at. Then you move into step 2, which is get the data. So for customer analysis, You want to identify the top 20% of customers that contribute to 80% of revenue. You want to find the 20% of customers that contribute to 80% of the service burden. And you're prepared to have your mind blown because like, yeah, power law, whatever that might apply, but it is just like a truth, man. It is like physics. And so you'll start to understand like, holy shit, this is all true. On the product and feature side, you want to look at the features that drive the most revenue, that have the best adoption. And then you want to inversely understand the legacy stuff, the different elements that are showing no adoption or really just kind of introducing complexity that's slowing down users. And one thing that's kind of interesting here, just to tie together some of the stuff that we've spoken about in the past, is when I think one of my big learning lessons from 2024 is just to take a mathematical approach to life. And so we've spoken a lot about the RICE framework, which is reach times impact times confidence, which is your confidence in the reach and impact, divided by effort. And so you've got the numerator and the denominator. Effort is the denominator. So when you change the denominator, it has a huge impact, way more than just changing one of those variables in the numerator. And the same for sales cycle, which is number of opportunities times win rate times the contract value divided by cycle time. So anytime you can impact, and I always get confused, the one on the bottom, which I think is the denominator, it has outsized return. And so especially as it relates to product experiences, reducing the effort that you're requiring customers or asking of customers really has a radical impact. So you want to make things as simple. Again, simplicity is mastery. Or Jobs has said, others have said, you'll know when you're done when you can't take away anything. So just kind of tying some stuff there together. So now let's move in. The third element is operational work streams. And this gets a little do not get wrapped around the axle with this. You do not, you want to map internal processes and workflows, and you don't need a sexy flow chart and just whiteboard it, take a picture and move on and just look at, what are on a function by function basis, what are the most important kind of work streams that occur? Maybe start what's the root output of this function or this department? A lot of them, you'll be surprised. They're kind of information based. Like finance produces information so that we can make decisions. RevOps produces information so that we can make decisions. So anyway, be clear on what the actual output is, and then back into kind of the majority of the workflows or the things that happen in that function. Then you want to get into the team and resource allocation. So you want to audit where time and effort are spent across teams. And I think the thing to note is when you first hear power law, it's like, oh yeah, just fire everybody. And it's like, no. What we want to do is remove the 80% of stuff that is high effort, low impact from everybody's reality. And so and the thing that you'll find is that your team doesn't want to be doing the low impact, high time intensity shit either. So it's like, hey, we want to take all this stuff off your plate that probably makes you miserable. So it's just this calibration and focusing exercise that really is, everyone should be jazzed. So on the team, so we touched on that. So in the team and resource, you want to get clear on, where is time going? Meetings, processes, firefighting, etc. And then you also want to have a point of view on who are the power law performers, because 20% of your team should be producing 80% of the impact, etc. Then we move into step 3, which is, simplification opportunities. And we bucket these pretty straightforward, and they'll be respective to your context and your findings. But we have on the customer side, customer pruning, which is kind of sunsetting customer relationships that are low revenue, really high support burden. This is probably just like a downstream lagging manifestation of poor ICP fit, but you want to just be clear on that. And obviously you need to be super thoughtful there because customers depend on you. Their business depends on you. You can't just go in here and just start chopping. You need to just come up with thoughtful kind of sunsetting plans and get on the same page with customers. Like, this is not a great fit. Product rationalization, you want to decommission low value features or kind of right size the product roadmap in that context. And then, before you add new features, make the features that have the most adoption better, aka simpler. And then you get into process streamlining, eliminate redundant or low value processes, automate, delegate time consuming stuff. The usual suspects here is like reporting work streams and then approvals. If it's like, hey, we have this thing in HubSpot and it gets done and then it goes to this person for approval and then it goes to this person for approval, it's like, whoa, that's a bottleneck. And then team simplification. And this is like, you're probably going to index towards not being, or let's just say this, you will become more ruthless over time as a function of experience, which means you should probably index towards being more ruthless out of the gate, especially when it comes to meetings. And I don't think it's too radical to kill all standing meetings and then slowly reintroduce meetings over time as you start to understand like their real value, especially if your team indexes towards engineering or individual contributors. that benefit hugely from big focused blocks of sprint work to get into flow state. A 15-minute meeting, a 15-minute, kind of innocent check-in stand-up can totally devastate an engineer's day. So you want to just kill meetings like it's going out of style. That's that. Cool. So now let's move into execution plan. So month one is a deep dive in data gathering, and you can accelerate, and kind of short circuit this timeline based on your context, your team footprint, etc. But I guess month one or phase one is deep dive in data gathering. You guessed it. Month two or phase two is prioritize and simplify. And month three is implement and kind of iterate. We want to treat this whole process iteratively, just like we treat just about everything in life. So, and I won't spend too much time here, but actually we'll probably bounce simply. Let's go over a few, but then I want to get to the audit checklist because that's where the rubber meets the road here. But like in customer analysis, you're reviewing customer level financials and the data. And this is back to the elements we touched on. Be scared. I mean, I guess most business problems can be solved by talking to your customers. So definitely execute as many one-on-one conversations with you as you can with your top customers, just to kind of calibrate your point of view and introduce a little bit of qualitative overlay. Product and revenue review, look at product level revenue, look at gross margin contribution. And this is another thing where it's like 20% of your, if you have a suite of products or kind of different features, you guessed it, 20% of your products are going to contribute to 80% of margin. It's just everywhere you look. Power law is just a wild, wild thing. On the team and workflow, a team survey is one of the most productive exercises of all time, where it's like, what's the most important output for your team? What's your most important output? Lay out the tasks that you touch on, or like recurring tasks that you touch on a weekly basis, and score them on time intensity or effort, and score them on impact. And what you end up, you can basically take all those work streams, however you want to think about it, and chart them into quadrants. And you'll notice like, this is high impact, low time. This is low impact, high time. And you'll just see it lay out. And it's like, cool, we've got a really clear point of view on the stuff that we need to get off your plate pronto. And then you can utilize, Elon Musk has a really good algo, which is basically question the requirements. Or first, it's like, why does this thing even exist? Okay, what can we hack away from this workflow or this thing? And then you iterate on it. And then you look to automate it or delegate it. So there's a thoughtful way to kind of go after the stuff in the quadrant that you want to kill. Month two is prioritization. So, and guess what? Like, you'll probably be like, okay, cool. We did all this stuff. We've got 10 candidates to basically, delete pronto. And then power law applies again. So it's probably like 2 or 3 of those things on the list of 10 are going to create 80% of the impact. So you want to apply power law almost always, universally. Find those 2 or 3 things that you want to sunset pronto on a function by function basis or overarchingly across the group. You want to make sure that you're aligned with the team, the leadership team. And again, in our context, we don't have huge teams, so it's pretty easy exercise, but you don't want to go hacking away at something without really understanding the implications. And then we always want to have a view towards executing quick wins, especially in this context, because you want to build momentum in this direction. So you should find stuff that's high impact, low effort to remove and just knock them down quick as you can, and then move towards whatever you see as a little bit more long-term, kind of strategically impacting. Month 3, implement it, get to the end, communicate results, and iterate on that whole process. And out of the gate, I think this is probably best suited for an annual exercise, but don't be scared to do it on a quarterly basis. I think the bottom line is that this is a practice and you should revisit it over time. Cool. Let's bounce into the power law audit checklist. I'm going to share my screen. This is shared in a public Notion DB or Notion board. Let's bring it up. All right. Hopefully you can see this one. All right. So the table is organized pretty straightforward. So we have category, key questions to ask, data, tools to use, outcomes and next steps, and then most importantly, deliverables. So I'm not going to go through all of these. I'll just give you a flavor of what's coming. So on the customer side, which 20% of customers, the question is, which 20% of customers generate 80% of revenue? The data or the tools you're going to use are CRM and financial data, probably QuickBooks, however you invoice, Stripe, you name it. The outcome is kind of a tiered point of view on customers based on profitability and effort. So this would be a customer profitability report with a tiered point of view on your customers. So folks that are, an A equates to high revenue, high margin contribution, low effort, low lift. If we go into the product and features category, which 20% of products or features drive 80% of customer value and revenue, you're going to be using product usage analytics, probably a mixed panel or, similar. And I think where this is also useful is it's going to call out inefficiencies in your data architecture. So if you are like, well, shit, we don't know which features have, drive 20 or which 20% of features is like, okay, the prerequisite, the most productive immediate step you can move towards is get the data. So stand up whatever you need such that you can measure what you want to improve. And this is going to manifest in a feature prioritization matrix. So it's kind of essential, underutilized, and sunset candidates. Let's go into team resources. Let's go into meetings. Which recurring meetings provide minimal value or are too long? Audit calendars, survey the team on meetings. That should be part of your team survey. Which meetings suck the most? And that's going to come out with a meeting audit summary. For the team resources, with that employee service, kind of how is the team's time allocated between low and high value activities? You're going to use employee surveys, task logs. The deliverable here will be a time allocation heat map or kind of a quadrant based point of view where you want to look for low effort, high impact and double down on that as much as you can. The Eisenhower matrix is kind of the same thing. You just change the axes and there you have it. And then you go through, the categories: customers, products and features, processes, team resources, meetings, revenue generation, customer support, culture and morale, metrics and reporting. And the metrics and reporting, don't sleep on this. So this is a Hormozy special and I love it, is you get a filtering kind of mechanism or a razor, honestly, for data or metrics is if this metric changes, does it change our behavior? So again, probably 20% of any dashboard yields 80% of the stuff that you need to understand. And again, simplicity is mastery. So, leave no stone unturned generally. Or don't limit the scope of what you're looking at, because it's probably 20% of the metrics that you're tracking provide the clearest view of the business. So that comes out to just what can we cut from this dashboard such that we can get to the insights much quicker that we need, or ultimately that drive behavior, and away you go. All right, y'all, that is a wrap. And in closing, and ask for everyone. So I got some, Spotify did like a year in review and the stats like blew me away. I was like, it's like we're probably, I think it was 100 people's number one podcast, and we were a top 25 video, like just crazy numbers. And well, I didn't think we were getting much traction this way. I mean, I get anecdotal feedback all the time because we don't have any subscribers. So if this is used, like that's the number one signal for me that what we're doing is helpful and that we should keep doing what we're doing. So if you're digging it and it's adding value to your reality, if you would subscribe, that's super useful for me, because I'm like, okay, hey, this thing's growing. Otherwise I have to wait till the end of the year to get Spotify's wrap. Same thing on YouTube. And not, obviously if it's useful, share it with people that you think would be useful. We're ultimately, building in public. We're obviously very committed to that, and not in the sense that we just want to shout about what we're doing from the hilltops, but we want to try and help folks that are perhaps a little bit behind us in their journey. And most importantly, we want to create a conversation. So, high tides, all ships rise. So if you're facing similar challenge, we're like, let's talk, let's swap notes, let's all help each other. We're all on this thing and in this journey together. So with that, for the love of the game, much love. Go get them. 2025, we're coming for you. Cheers.